Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about art school debt. Is it worth it? If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof: critiques, tutorials, professional development, and workshops. I was shocked when I looked at the RISD website. It's $81,000 a year. And when I went in the 90s, granted I'm old, it was 22,000. What is that? How does that make you feel, Dorian, as a recent grad?
For me, leaving there and it was 70,000, just seeing how drastically it's gone up in the past 2 years, it just makes me a little bit nervous for the future of art school, a lot of tuition fees.
Plus, the fees. A lot of people don't know about this. So if you go to art school, not only do you have to pay for all the materials, which get very expensive in certain fields, there's all these fees. Like, Kat, I think you took jewelry. There must have been a lab fee for that.
Yeah, there are a lot of hidden fees in art school. So there's like a lab fee, for instance, and of course you have to pay for your materials, but sometimes schools will tack on more fees, such as an activity fee. And you're saying, what is the activity for? And apparently it's for like student events such as field trips or like festivals or fairs or whatever. And all of these fees, they don't really talk about it up front, and you only realize that you have to pay them once you're in the institution.
And the technology fee, because that one is just for literally having Wi-Fi and a computer.
Dorian, I imagine in industrial design, taking all those wood and metal shops, you must have to pay all kinds of lab fees.
As somebody who had to literally take wood shop, metal shop, and a 3D modeling class, there's some materials that they force you to use that are literally essential to the class. So if you aren't able to afford that, then it definitely puts you at a disadvantage.
81,000 a year at RISD times 4, $324,000. I took out student loans for graduate school, and at the time it was, I think, about 23K. And I just finished paying off my loans 5 years ago. $40,000, $324,000. I mean, Kat, do you feel like you can legitimately encourage somebody to jump into a situation like that?
No, I cannot encourage somebody to take out that much debt and be saddled with that with pretty much the rest of their life.
On the other hand, though, the art school community is unique. You will never find another situation where you have that type of community at your fingertips.
Being surrounded by so many creatives is something that, yes, you can find in a city, but it's not as concentrated. And living in Providence still, after going to RISD, I've learned I kind of crave that environment still. I kind of crave that critique space, that workspace of people up at 1 a.m. and being like, hey, can I get some feedback on this idea, this concept I'm working on? Because it's that back and forth banter, bouncing around. You don't need a school to do that, but it definitely made it 10,000 times easier having those opportunities just there naturally.
There are a lot of negatives when it comes to being part of a community where you're not really seen, where you're not really respected, and people don't really know what you're doing. An art school, nothing is going to replace the connections that you get there, whether they be professional or personal. And so if you don't go to an art school, really the onus is on you to make those connections, and really nothing can top being stuck for 4 years in a studio with someone else. That is one of the strongest connections you can ever get.
I miss those late nights in the studio because I would hang out with people not because we were friends, but because, we happened to go to studio at this time. And so I spent a lot of time with people who I wouldn't have kept in touch with long term, but there is a degree of connection there. That was great. And what I like about working together in a studio is you don't have to talk, but inevitably
yes.
You do. But it's also really cool. Do you miss that, Dorian?
Being able to have my focus whenever I need it, and then to turn and observe and see if anyone else has broken their focus, and then be like, okay, you want to have a conversation? I need to talk to somebody. And just being able to talk for 30 minutes to an hour.
This is a big con. Most BFA degrees do not guarantee employment post-grad. I have a friend who's a doctor. She went to medical school. She's a doctor. She didn't have to wonder, am I going to get a job? Same thing with law school. Take the bar exam, come back and be a lawyer. Now, Kat, you mentioned something to me about architecture, about the quote, architectural designer that I didn't know about.
So to become an architect is actually a much longer process than a lot of people realize. After you go to an undergrad school or maybe even your master's in architecture, when you graduate with your BFA or MFA in architecture, you actually are not an architect just yet. You are an architectural designer. And only after a certain number of years of working, plus you have to pass a series of exams, like 4 to 7 exams, a lot of testing. Only then can you get your license and become an actual architect. But a lot of people enter their BFA or MFA programs in architecture and think, I'll be an architect at the end. That's not true. You still have a ways to go.
Oftentimes people try to compare other fields to being an artist. I'm like, no, you don't get to tell me, oh, this is how it works in the tech world. Why aren't you doing that?
I went into art school not having the best financial standing, like as a family. So we were trying to find ways to afford school. And luckily enough, I was able to get financial aid. I was getting that financial aid with the hopes of having a full-time job after. So a lot of people expect, okay, he's going to art school, he's going to design school, he's going to get this job that he wants after. But it doesn't work that easy. So there's still a lot of stuff that I'm doing, like making my portfolio stronger, doing commissions, looking at ways to reach out that will help me be connected to someone who's maybe looking for someone that does what I'm doing. Or, you know, it's really about just putting yourself out there. And it's tough to explain that to family when they're like, so how's the job? Did you get that big fancy, job? And I'm like, no. But I am happy and I am creating a lot of stuff that impacts people in a positive way.
When people go into art school, they have expectations. A lot of people say, oh, well, if I go to art school, and this is one of the pros, and I make all kinds of contacts. I'm like, guys, those contacts are not guaranteed.
There's a difference between attending and showing up. And if you aren't ready to show up and be fully present, be willing to say your ideas, challenge other people, like you have to show that you're willing to put in the work more than just attending. In the art world, it is at times pretty cutthroat. If you're not prepared for that, or if you're not willing to show that you can stand your own ground, I don't think your network will stay the strongest, if that makes sense.
Students don't realize that the networking and contacts, it's up to them. So, Kat, I've had students at RISD who would talk to me after class or ask me questions. Those people I'm going to remember. I felt terrible. I had somebody ask me for a grad school recommendation. I'm like, I don't know who you are. It's terrible. Kat, I just don't think it gets dropped in your lap. Students think that's how it is.
I mean, it is up to your personal ambition and drive. Nobody wants to feel used. I think the term networking is really hard to explain because it's not really about having a professional connection. It's more about building a relationship. And the truth is, when you go to art school, you're surrounded by people who are rife for building a connection with because you have similar interests, you have similar goals. Therefore, you have a lot of good grounding to build a strong relationship.
Anna says, also getting an MFA does not guarantee success in the art world. A lot of artists with MFAs struggle for years and a lot never make it. Being successful in art school is not the same thing as being successful outside of that, because I definitely went to art school with people who I looked at their work and I thought, oh my gosh, you're a superstar. You're going to be amazing. And a lot of them didn't go anywhere. And then a lot of people who were there and not the best students really had amazing careers because they had vision, they had initiative, and all that skill. People think it's all about skill. It's not. It's about having something to say and really hustling, because you can't get anywhere without the hustle. Doesn't matter how good your work is. Here's a big con. Quality of instruction varies at all schools. Of course, there's the rankings that you get on US News, but regardless of the school, you're going to find some crappy classes at the top ranked schools. I had a foundation studies teacher. I'm not kidding. He was just a blathering idiot. He would just talk and talk and talk, not make any sense. We didn't know what he was trying to refer to. And it was like I was losing brain cells in that class. It was so bad.
I had a foundation class like you where I was just looking at the teacher. I was like, why are you making us do the electric slide in the middle of the public? And why do you want me to teach it? And why is this our final? The teachers that you find that love their job and are passionate about at least their work, not all of them have both of those things together, and you'll see that. I don't feel like a lot of teachers understand that they can't just show what their work is and expect people to just be able to like learn.
Seven Angelic says a good artist does not necessarily a good teacher make. Totally separate skills. And at RISD, they prioritize. If you were in the Whitney Biennial, great. Sign you up. You could be the crappiest teacher on the planet. And I'm telling you, when they hire faculty, they don't care if you're a good teacher. And some of it's unethical. I mean, there was a professor at RISD who had a performance piece in the RISD faculty biennial. And they actually made the students do the performance. And that was one of the class assignments. Not cool. I mean, God, can you believe somebody gets away with that? Here's one gigantic pro, though. Art school degrees verify you as a professional. I'm sorry to say, but if you tell somebody I have my terminal degree in my field, just automatically you get more respect. And I know a lot of people with degrees who are no good, but that degree on that paper, Dorian, most people will not argue with that.
My baby.
Oh my gosh, you have it?
You've paid 300 something thousand for this piece of paper. You're telling everybody about it. You worked hard for this piece of paper. I put in too much time and work and energy into getting this degree. During a job interview, I went to RISD. I instantly see the faces of people change. A lot of people understand how hard it is to actually get through art school.
Any arts institution, it speaks to a certain level of quality for you to be able to achieve that degree.
Con. Most art schools don't teach career prep or business. It is pathetic. They don't lift a finger, which to me is shocking because I have so many students, former ones. They call me up, Clara, I got a commission. How do I send an invoice? I'm like, that's ridiculous because they always have the excuse, oh, it's different for everybody. I'm like, if you don't know how to send an invoice, that's a problem.
The employment landscape has changed a lot too. Like one of the best ways to promote yourself as an artist is social media. And social media is definitely a new thing that's not really taught.
My first contract, I literally was like, all right, you can pay me 100% at the end. That was already a mess up because you should normally try and get half up front and then the other half after completion. And that way you don't also have to think about them just, scamming you. I didn't know that. And I had to wait 6 months for my first big project after art school.
Also, if they do have career prep classes here and there, I'm shocked that they're taught by people who are so out of date. I know somebody who taught a professional development class who established their career in the 70s and is not on social media. I was like, how can you have a career prep class by somebody who has a career from several decades ago and who is not current? There's a lot of people who they just sort of stop publishing. And so actually it's not always a guarantee that the person you are learning that career prep from actually has a career right now. This is a huge pro. Access to different types of facilities. The printmaking building, lithography studio, intaglio studio, silk screening, all kinds of equipment that would cost a fortune for you to have after school. I imagine Dorian, for ID, you must have had really cool facilities.
My favorite one to be in was the wood shop because I love working with like lumber and making tables, furniture, stuff like that. They also provided us a tool bag that had some stuff in it too. Those facilities, we had metal shop, we have a model shop, we all had our own studios. There was 6th floor. I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't have that opportunity.
I've hired people, and while I mean, I'm not the best example because a lot of our staff did go to RISD, but I want to know, can you do it? Jordan talks to me all the time in animation. Do you have the chops in animation to actually do this? And you can say, I want to RISD, I want to CalArts, and they don't care if you can't do it. Lots of animation jobs, you have to do a drawing test. You don't do well in that, who cares where you went to school? So that's where that definitely is important. Explaining or justifying what you do to non-artists. I feel like I'm always doing this. I'm always like, I worked hard, I'm smart, I can do things. Like, Dorian, why are people like that?
People don't truly understand art. I hate that because it's so cliche. It's like, you don't get what I'm doing here. Like, no. Some people just don't understand art as a business and art as a career. And I spend a lot of time justifying and explaining, like, I'm an industrial designer. The first thing is people are like, what's an industrial designer? Is that an architect? And I'm like, no, that's an architect. In terms of my family, I'm like, this is what I'm doing with my business decisions. Justify that to them.
Kat, I know you grew up near the Silicon Valley, and so a lot of people you know are in the tech field, and they have these expectations that you should be doing what they're doing, but within your field. And I think that's so unfair.
It is unfair. And one of the reasons why I was so relieved to come back to the RISD campus is because where I was coming from, they did not understand what I did. And I think Dorian hit the nail on the head here in that when people don't understand what you do, they don't really respect what you do or come to it with an open mind. They come to it with their own expectations and, I guess, stereotypes of what they believe to be, quote, success, unquote. They're just not open to understanding your point of view.
We have an Art Prof Share today. Art Prof Share is where you create something in response to our content. So today we are showing off Joan, who did the Drawing Basics track, which is a huge amount of work. Kat, isn't this extraordinary that people in our community do this on their own?
I mean, I think that the drive here is incredible. Plus, like, I think that Joan has talent and innate ability, but that's not going to go anywhere without hard work. And I see so much hard work here. In addition to that, I see a lot of things in these pieces that have been referenced in previous like art prof like tutorials and tracks. Like the compositions of these pieces are great. The value is great. The use of the medium is incredible.
Dorian, how do you think Joan did?
It's crazy that you can see the improvements so quick throughout this. Like, it looks amazing. I always struggled with figure drawing, so the amount of figures that you do have to draw to actually start understanding proportion and light and shading, you can see that there's like an actual study happening with these drawings. It's really great.
Yeah, this is so much work. And I think what Dorian's pointing to is the growth that happens from beginning to end. Because the way the tracks work, it's a sequence of video lessons and prompts. You do them at your own pace. And I think what I like doing with these tracks is to have the projects build on top of each other. So when I design a track, I'm thinking about how, okay, lesson 1 addresses this, lesson 2 builds upon that. And by the end of the track, which is week 6, you land at a spot that provides some degree of resolution. So congratulations, Joan, on an amazing accomplishment. We are so proud of you and everything that you accomplished. We have a 20% off sale on portfolio critiques today through Tuesday. Take advantage of this because it's only happening right now. It's not going to happen again for a little while. We also have November workshops have been posted. Take a look at that. We have a bunch of workshops we've never done before, like gestural painting, flesh tones, storms, clouds, and sunsets. That is on the main page of artprof.org. And come hang out with us in our art school portfolios group. This is where you get support and critiques from our staff, weekly voice sessions. This is for BFA and MFA applicants. Please join us in the Discord right after the stream. Kat and I will be on the stage, and this is where you get to talk to us on voice. We love hearing your voices, so please hang out with us in the post-live stream stage channel. And our Discord is awesome. And it's where all the cool kids are. So don't you want to be a cool kid for the first time in your entire life? I do.
What?
It's a lot to offer. Art Prof has services. We have artist calls, personal art curriculums, artist statement editing, and portfolio critiques again, which are 20% off. Thank you to our brilliant, wonderful top Patreon supporters who have been with us for so long and who we are so appreciative towards. Visit artprof.org. We have tons of content out there that's not on YouTube. Use the search bar. Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. And Maggie wants you to subscribe for more art tutorials, critiques, and business tips. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.